My name is Danielle Elise Mercer. I'm 23 years old, and when I was 16, my younger sister stabbed me with an 8-inch carving knife. My parents watched blood run down my arm and asked what I had done to provoke her. That was the night I finally understood something I had spent my entire childhood refusing to accept. They were never going to choose me. Anna was 2 years younger than me. From the moment she was born, she became the center of our family's universe. My father had always wanted another daughter, one he could teach softball to, escort to father-daughter dances, and brag about to his coworkers. My mother finally had the little shopping companion she had imagined raising. I was the practice child, the daughter they had already made their mistakes on. Dad managed a medical equipment territory across 3 counties in Ohio. Mom handled insurance billing for a dental practice and worked flexible hours so she could take Anna to an endless rotation of appointments. From the outside, we looked painfully normal. A Honda Pilot in the driveway, family photographs above the staircase, a mortgage my parents complained about at dinner. Inside the house, everything revolved around Anna's moods. Her problems began when she was 7. These weren't ordinary tantrums. She would scream until she fainted, punch holes in walls, threaten herself with craft scissors, and accuse people of plotting against her. My parents took her to specialists from Cleveland to Columbus. Every 6 months, someone gave them a new diagnosis. ADHD became bipolar disorder. Bipolar became oppositional defiant disorder, then anxiety, then depression. The medications changed, the excuses didn't. Anna was sick, so Anna needed protection. Anna was struggling, so Anna received priority. Anna was angry, so everyone else had to make themselves smaller. My father often told people he was raising me to be tough and independent. What that meant in practice was that I was expected to endure anything without complaining. When Anna destroyed my belongings, I was told to be generous. When she scratched me, bit me, or threw things at my face, I was told to understand her condition. When I asked why nobody protected me, my mother would lower her voice and say, "Danielle, you know she isn't like you. You're stronger." By 14, I wasn't her sister anymore. I was her unpaid psychiatric aide. Sometimes, my parents said Anna needed a safe person to release her anger on. According to them, I should have been honored she trusted me enough to make me that person. The police began visiting when I was 15. The first time, Anna locked herself in the bathroom with a box cutter because our parents refused to let her dye her hair blue. Dad called 911 while I kicked the door open. An older officer arrived and studied the wreckage. Broken wood around the frame, Anna sobbing on the floor, my parents kneeling beside her, and me standing barefoot with splinters embedded in my heel. "Are you hurt?" he asked me. Mom answered before I could. "She's fine. Danielle is wonderful with her sister. We're dealing with a mental health crisis." The officer looked at me again. For a moment, I thought he could see everything. Then he wrote his report and left. That became the pattern. Anna exploded. The police came. My parents explained her diagnoses. Everyone discussed treatment plans. Nobody asked what living with her was doing to me. Anna entered my bedroom whenever I was at school or work. She stole hoodies, headphones, money, and anything else that caught her attention. When confronted, she either denied it or collapsed into tears. "You hate me," she would sob. "I just wanted something that smelled like you." Mom would immediately turn toward me. "Let her keep it. Don't make this worse." I started storing valuables inside a gym locker at school. I hid cash inside old textbook covers and taped emergency money beneath my desk drawer. The violence worsened slowly enough that my parents could pretend it wasn't happening. First came ordinary hitting, then scratching, biting. Heavy objects thrown at my head. Once, Anna chased me around the kitchen island with a screwdriver because I refused to give her my laptop password. My parents never saw the beginning of an attack, only the aftermath. They would find blood on my arms or bruises along my ribs and ask the same question. What did you do to trigger her? Then one of them would comfort Anna while I cleaned myself up alone. My English teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, noticed the scratches across my forearms. She stopped me after class one afternoon. You know you can tell me if something is happening at home. I stared at the classroom door. The truth sat behind my teeth. I wanted to tell her I barricaded my bedroom at night, that I slept with a chair pressed beneath a doorknob, that I was failing algebra because I spent every evening listening for Anna's footsteps. But I already knew how adults would describe my family. Good parents managing an impossible child. A sick girl who couldn't control herself. A strong older sister who needed to be patient. Everything's fine, I said. Mrs. Rodriguez didn't believe me, but she let me leave. 3 weeks before my 17th birthday, Anna was suspended for threatening to push another student down a staircase. It happened on a Thursday in March. I came home from work shortly after 9 and sat at the kitchen table studying for a chemistry test. I had been taking extra shifts because every hour at work was an hour I didn't have to spend at home. Anna stormed downstairs and began ripping open cabinets. Where's my money? I looked up from my textbook. What money? I had $60 in my room. I haven't been in your room. Her eyes narrowed. Liar. She accused me of stealing from her because I thought my job made me better than everyone else. The accusation struck something raw inside me. I worked nearly 40 hours a week while attending school. I saved every dollar because I knew nobody in that house would rescue me if something went wrong. I didn't take it, I said. Maybe you spent it and forgot. Her face turned red. She swept mail from the counter, threw napkins across the kitchen, and smashed one of Mom's ceramic mugs against the wall. I kept looking at my homework. Find somebody else to argue with, Anna. I have a test. She went silent. That silence frightened me more than the screaming. You think you're better than me, she whispered. No, I think you need to leave me alone. She yanked open the knife drawer. The carving knife looked enormous in her hand. You want to keep lying? I should have run. Instead, I remained seated because I had watched her make hundreds of threats. Some exhausted part of me believed this would be another one. She crossed the distance before I could move. The blade entered my left shoulder, just above the collarbone. For half a second, I felt pressure instead of pain. Then fire tore through my upper body. I fell from the chair, striking the floor with my hip. The knife slipped from Anna's hand and clattered beside me. She immediately began crying, not because I was bleeding, because she had frightened herself. My parents rushed into the kitchen. Mom looked at Anna, then at me. What did you do to upset her? Blood was flowing down my arm and dripping from my fingers. Look what you made her do, Mom shouted. Dad pressed a dish towel against my shoulder, but his eyes remained fixed on Anna.
We need to call Dr. Martinez, Mom said. Dr. Martinez was Anna's therapist.
What about the hospital? I asked. The towel was already soaked through. Dad barely glanced at the wound. Stop being dramatic. It isn't that deep. But I could see something pale beneath the torn skin. The room tilted whenever I tried to stand. For the next hour, my parents called Anna's treatment team and debated whether she needed observation. Nobody called an ambulance for me. Nobody even cleaned the blood from the floor. I stepped around my own puddle of blood and went upstairs. Through the wall, I heard them comforting Anna as though she had survived something terrible. I sat on my bed with red towels wrapped around my shoulder. That was when the truth became clear. I could die in that room, and they would still make my death about Anna's feelings. Strangely, the realization brought relief. If they didn't want a daughter, they no longer had to have one. I waited until the house became quiet. Then I packed 2 shirts, a hoodie, jeans, and a charger into my school backpack. I took the $43 I had earned mowing lawns and shoveling driveways.
I left my phone behind
because I knew they could track it. I didn't write a note. There was nothing left to explain. My shoulder was still bleeding when I unlocked the back door and stepped into the freezing night. I walked down the driveway without looking behind me. By sunrise, I was hiding inside the bathroom of a 24-hour gas station, pressing paper towels against a stab wound and trying to understand how a 16-year-old girl was supposed to survive with $43. I had no home, no identification, no adult searching for me for the right reasons. But for the first time in years, nobody could hurt me and call it love. The first night nearly broke me. I stayed inside the restroom of a 24-hour gas station until sunrise because it was warm and nobody questioned a quiet teenage girl who looked exhausted. I used paper towels to wrap my shoulder again, but every movement soaked them red. When morning came, I stepped outside with $43, a backpack, and absolutely no plan. For the first week, survival became my only job. I wandered between parks, libraries, and shopping centers because homeless people can't stay anywhere too long before someone notices. Security guards ask questions, store managers become suspicious, police officers tell you to move along. The public library became my refuge. It had heat, clean bathrooms, and shelves where I could disappear for hours pretending to read. One afternoon, I finally cleaned the wound properly under bright bathroom lights. The cut was deeper than I'd realized, jagged around the edges and already beginning to look infected. It hurt every time I breathed. But nobody was screaming at me. Nobody was accusing me of ruining someone else's life. Oddly enough, the pain felt easier than living inside my parents' house. Food became another lesson. Convenience stores threw away packaged food that had technically expired but was still edible. Churches served free dinners on certain evenings. I quickly memorized which volunteers asked questions and which simply handed people plates with quiet kindness. After years of apologizing for existing, those silent meals almost made me cry. Sleeping was harder. I tried behind restaurants, beneath bridges, even inside an all-night laundromat until an employee chased me away. Being 16 and alone made me an easy target. Men twice my age offered rides that felt dangerous before they even finished speaking. Teenagers laughed whenever they noticed the backpack I carried everywhere. Every night I slept lightly, waking at the smallest sound. Everything changed because of Tommy. He worked nights at a scrapyard outside town. He noticed me helping another homeless woman carry scrap metal one evening and quietly asked whether I had somewhere safe to sleep. I shook my head. Instead of asking uncomfortable questions, he simply pointed toward an old travel trailer sitting behind the fence. "You can use that," he said. "Help me sort metal during breaks, and we'll call it even." The trailer barely deserved the name. Rain leaked through holes in the roof. There was no running water, no insulation. But it had a lock. For the first time since leaving home, I could close a door and know nobody would burst inside screaming. Tommy never asked why I had run away. He said everyone living on the street carried a story heavy enough already. Instead, he taught me practical things. Which churches served breakfast, which shelters were safe, which police officers treated homeless people like human beings, which ones enjoyed making life harder. Winter arrived early. The trailer became unbearably cold, and a tiny electric heater consumed almost everything I earned doing odd jobs. I learned to sleep wearing 2 hoodies, gloves, and wool socks inside an old sleeping bag Tommy found for me. My 17th birthday came without a single phone call. No cake, no presents. No message from my parents asking if I was alive. I spent the day unloading trucks for cash. That evening, I bought myself a sandwich and a pair of used work boots. As strange as it sounds, it felt like the happiest birthday I'd ever had. Nobody yelled, nobody cried. Nobody blamed me for somebody else's emotions. Every morning before sunrise, laborers gathered behind a Home Depot parking lot, hoping contractors would choose them for temporary jobs. Some days I earned $50, some days nothing. The work was brutal. moving concrete, digging trenches, cleaning demolition sites. My hands became rough, my shoulders stronger, and every paycheck reminded me that I was surviving because of my own effort. One contractor kept requesting me. His name was Mike. He noticed I worked harder than most adults despite barely speaking. Instead of treating me like disposable labor, he explained every repair we completed. While installing cabinets or ceiling fans, he'd patiently describe electrical diagrams, plumbing layouts, and safety procedures. "You learn fast," he told me one afternoon. "Too fast to spend your whole life chasing day labor." I shrugged. I never finished high school. So finish. The suggestion sounded impossible. School belonged to another version of me, the frightened girl who still believed her parents would eventually protect her. Mike refused to let the idea die. Every week he asked again. Eventually, I visited a community college that offered GED classes during the evening. Walking into that admissions office terrified me more than sleeping outside ever had. The woman behind the desk looked skeptical when I couldn't answer basic questions about my address or family. I lied where I had to, told the truth where I could. The classes themselves weren't difficult. Sitting inside a classroom again was. Most students were adults rebuilding lives that had fallen apart. Single mothers, veterans, people recovering from addiction. Listening to their stories made me realize something important. Broken beginnings didn't automatically create broken endings. Months later, I passed every section of the GED on my first attempt. Mike insisted on celebrating. He took me to a real restaurant with cloth napkins and waiters. When the waitress congratulated me after overhearing our conversation, I nearly cried into my dinner. It was the first time in years anyone had celebrated something I'd accomplished. Soon afterward, Mike introduced me to his older brother, Tony. Tony owned a plumbing company and needed apprentices. Unlike many contractors, he believed training people properly mattered. The apprenticeship changed everything. For 4 years, I learned every part of the trade: installing water heaters, repairing burst pipes, diagnosing hidden leaks, reading construction blueprints, working through freezing winters and sweltering summers. The work was exhausting, but every new skill felt like another brick separating me from my childhood. Tony treated me with respect. If I made a mistake, he corrected it. He never screamed, never humiliated me, never suggested I deserved to be hurt. At 19, I finally rented my own apartment. It was tiny. The carpet was worn, the kitchen cabinets barely closed. But every bill had my name on it. The key belonged only to me. The first night I slept there, I locked the front door 3 separate times before climbing into bed. Then I cried. Not because I was lonely, because silence no longer frightened me. It meant safety. As the years passed, I earned my plumbing license on the first attempt. Tony trusted me with larger projects. Customers started requesting me specifically because they knew I'd fix problems correctly instead of taking shortcuts. Eventually, my name appeared on the side of my own company truck, Danielle Mercer, licensed plumber. Every morning I stared at those words for a few extra seconds. The girl who once hid inside library bathrooms now owned professional tools worth more than everything she'd possessed at 16. Right before my 23rd birthday, Tony offered me a partnership in the company. Together, we expanded the business, hired apprentices, and purchased better equipment. A few months later, I bought my own house. It wasn't luxurious. It needed repairs. I spent weekends replacing flooring, repairing plumbing, repainting walls, and planting flowers along the front walkway. Every improvement whispered the same message: you survived. The neighborhood was peaceful. Teachers lived across the street. An elderly couple baked cookies every Christmas. Neighbors waved whenever they saw my truck. None of them knew anything about the frightened teenager I had once been. I preferred it that way. My past finally felt buried. Then, one quiet Saturday afternoon, while deleting old email accounts, I remembered an abandoned Facebook profile from high school. Curiosity made me log in. I wish I hadn't. For years, my mother had been posting emotional messages about her missing daughter. Our hearts never stop hoping Danielle comes home. A mother's love never gives up. Please keep praying for our family. Hundreds of sympathetic comments filled every post. Friends, neighbors, extended relatives. Everyone believed my parents were victims grieving a runaway child. Nobody knew they had watched their bleeding daughter walk upstairs without calling an ambulance. My hands trembled as I scrolled through years of carefully staged photographs and heartbreaking captions. Every post rewrote history a little more. Finally, anger overwhelmed caution. I typed one sentence. I'm alive. Leave me alone. I thought that would be the end. Instead, I had just opened the door they had been trying to find for 7 years. One message was all it took. Within days, relatives I barely remembered somehow found my phone number, my work email, even my business website. My inbox filled with lectures about forgiveness, family loyalty, and how much pain I had caused by disappearing. Not one person asked why I had run. My mother insisted the stabbing had been an unfortunate accident. My aunt wrote that my parents had sacrificed everything for Anna and me, and I should show gratitude instead of resentment. The final straw came when my parents appeared uninvited at my house. They walked inside as if they still owned my life. Mom admired my home, while Dad demanded I apologize for embarrassing the family. You ran away like a coward, he snapped. People still ask what happened. I stared at him. I left while bleeding because you called Anna's therapist instead of an ambulance. Neither of them looked ashamed. Instead, Mom smiled softly. Anna wants to apologize. She's changed. Against my better judgment, I agreed to one final meeting under one condition. After that day, they would leave me alone forever. The following Saturday, they arrived exactly on time. Anna looked completely different. Older, quieter, like someone carrying a weight she had finally decided to acknowledge. She looked directly at me. I remember everything, she whispered. The screaming, destroying your things, chasing you, the knife. None of it disappeared just because I was sick. Silence filled the room. I chose you because I knew you wouldn't fight back, she continued, tears forming. I've spent years in therapy realizing how cruel I was. You didn't abandon us. You escaped. For the first time in years, someone from my family spoke the truth. She stood, walked toward me, and carefully hugged me. I stayed frozen for a moment, before gently placing one hand on her shoulder. Not because everything was forgiven, because accountability deserved acknowledgement. Before either of us could speak again, my mother interrupted. See? She said brightly. Now we can finally move on as a family. I slowly turned toward my parents. No. The room fell silent. Anna admitted what she did. She accepted responsibility. I looked at my father. You watched your bleeding daughter and blamed her. Then at my mother. You still think protecting your image matters more than protecting your child. Neither of them could answer. Finally, I faced Anna again. I forgive you. She broke into quiet tears. But I don't forgive them. I opened the front door. My parents walked out without another word. Anna paused on the porch and looked back once. Thank you, she whispered. I nodded. After they drove away, I locked the door, returned to my quiet kitchen, and stood there listening to the silence. The scar across my shoulder would never disappear. Neither would the memories. But they no longer belonged to my parents. They belonged to me. And for the first time since I was 16, they no longer controlled how my story ended.